The refugee camp floated above a dying planet inside the large metal shelter. Thousands of aliens waited in long lines. Each face looked tired, dirty, and lost. Among them stood a small alien girl, thin like a shadow, with glowing blue eyes. Her name was Jaya. She belonged to the Theroni race, peaceful people with soft voices and gentle hearts. But here, no one cared where she came from. Jaya held her stomach as it growled loudly. She hadn't eaten for 3 days. Her clothes were torn, her skin dry and pale. Every time she stepped forward in line, someone pushed her back. No food for freaks. Someone shouted, others laughed. Throwing old bread at her feet, she didn't fight back. She just looked at them with tired eyes and stayed silent inside the canteen. A large screen showed a warning. Food supplies low, 1 ration per person. Jaya tried again, walking forward, hoping someone would help, but a guard shoved her away. Go back. You're not on the list. He barked. She fell to the floor, dust rising around her. The crowd laughed again. Jaya stood up slowly, her knees shaking. She moved to a corner and sat alone. No one looked at her now. They had their food. Their friends, their own pain. Jaya was invisible, far across the hall. A human soldier named Corwin watched the scene. He had just returned from patrol. Tired and sweaty, but something about the small girl caught his eye. She reminded him of someone. Maybe his little sister back on Earth. He saw how she was treated. He saw the pain in her eyes, and it made his heart ache. Corwin walked to the food counter and took his own tray. He picked extra bread and a bowl of soup. Then, instead of sitting with the other soldiers, he walked across the hall right toward Jaya. The room went quiet. Everyone stared. Jaya looked up, confused and scared. She had seen soldiers before. Most didn't even notice her. But this one knelt in front of her and said softly, "Are you hungry?" Jaya didn't speak. She just nodded slowly, her eyes full of disbelief. Corwin smiled. "Come eat with me," he said. He held out his hand. Jaya hesitated, looking around. People whispered and pointed. Some laughed, others frowned. One guard said, "She's not one of us." "Soldier." Corwin ignored them. Slowly, Jaya took his hand. Her fingers were cold and trembling. Corwin led her to a small table near the wall. He placed the tray in front of her. "Eat," he said gently. She looked at the warm soup, steam rising. She had forgotten what real food smelled like. Tears filled her eyes as she picked up the spoon. The first sip burned her tongue. But she didn't care. It was warm. It was real. It was life. She ate slowly, carefully, like it might disappear if she rushed. Corwin just sat quietly, watching her. He didn't ask for thanks. He didn't need to. Around them, the noise of the room returned. But something had changed. One small act of kindness had broken the wall of silence. Jaya looked up at him and said softly in broken English, "Thank you." Corwin smiled again. "You're welcome," he replied. "I'm Corwin." Jaya pointed to herself. "Jaya," she said. He nodded. "Well, Jaya, no one should starve in this camp. Not while I'm here." But even as he said those words, he knew trouble was coming, because kindness in this place was not welcome, and some people would not like what he just did. The whisper had already started. The human feeds the alien. And in the shadows, someone watched. Someone who didn't want Jaya to survive. Jaya had never sat at a real table before. Not in this camp. She looked at the food like it was a dream. Corwin sat across from her, eating slowly, giving her time. The soup was still warm, the bread soft and fresh. Jaya held the spoon with shaky fingers. Every bite filled her empty body with strength. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't cold. She wasn't scared, at least not at that moment. She was just alive. Other soldiers stared from nearby tables. One whispered, "Why's he feeding that alien freak?" Another said, "Maybe he lost his mind." But Corwin didn't care. His eyes stayed on Jaya, who was quietly finishing her food. Jaya kept her eyes low. She didn't want trouble. But she also didn't want this moment to end. When she finished the last bite, she folded her hands and looked at Corwin more. He asked kindly. Jaya shook her head and smiled weakly. "No." "Full," she said, her voice small, broken but clear. Corwin nodded and leaned back. "You're safe here, okay?" he said. Jaya didn't know if she believed that, but she wanted to. He stood up and walked to the counter, grabbed a bottle of water and a small piece of fruit. He handed it to her gently. "Take it for later," he said. Jaya held it like a treasure. She had never been given something for later. Everything in the camp was always now or never. They sat quietly for a few more minutes. Then a tall officer walked over. It was Sergeant Vaughan. He looked angry. "Private Corwin," he barked. Corwin stood up quickly. "Yes, sir." "What do you think you're doing?" Vaughan asked. "She's not authorized to eat in this sector." Corwin stayed calm. "She's starving, sir," he replied. "We have enough." Vaughan shook his head. "You're risking your uniform for some alien child." Corwin said nothing. Vaughan leaned closer. "Next time, I'll report you to command." Then he walked away. Jaya watched the whole thing. She didn't understand every word, but she knew what a warning looked like. "Sorry," Corwin said, sitting back down. Jaya touched his hand for just a second. "Not sorry," she said. He looked at her and smiled. "Yeah," he said, "not sorry." That night, Corwin returned to his barracks. Other soldiers stared at him. Some laughed. "Corwin's got a little alien girlfriend," someone joked. Corwin ignored them. Meanwhile, Jaya walked back to her side of the camp. She kept the fruit hidden in her shirt. She found a quiet place behind a broken wall and sat down. She took small bites. Slowly, every chew reminded her of her home, now gone. Her mother used to make sweet blue fruits back on her planet. They would sit under trees and laugh. Now, she sat in dust and silence. But for once, she wasn't crying. The next day, the camp felt different. Jaya noticed people looking at her more, some with curiosity, some with hate. But at least she wasn't invisible anymore. Corwin found her near the same wall. He brought her a small bag. It had paper, pencils, and a tiny blanket. "I saw your drawings," he said. Jaya looked confused. "You drew on the wall." "Those flowers," he explained. Jaya nodded slowly. "Thorny bloom." She whispered, "From my home." Corwin sat beside her. "Draw more," he said. Jaya looked at the paper, her fingers trembling. She hadn't drawn on real paper. In months, she started sketching. Quiet, focused. A tree, a bird, a house with smoke rising from the roof. Her memories were still alive. Just buried. Corwin watched in silence. Every line she drew was like a whisper from another world. A world destroyed by war, but not forgotten at night. He placed one of her drawings on the wall of his bunk. A fellow soldier saw it and said, "What's that?" "Hope," Corwin replied. But not everyone liked what was happening. In a dark corner of the camp, a group of angry refugees talked in low voices. "She gets food while our kids starve." One man said, "She's different." "Strange," another added. "We should teach her a lesson," someone whispered. The camp was no longer just a place of survival. It had become a place of tension. Kindness was rare and dangerous. But for Jaya, everything had changed because of one human. The food had filled her stomach. But more than that, it had given her hope, and hope was more powerful than hunger. Whispers are dangerous. They float like smoke in the air, soft unseen, but choking everything they touch. In the refugee camp, the whispers had begun. "She's getting special treatment." Someone said, "That human soldier gives her food." Another muttered, "Why her?" "My kids are hungry too," a mother complained. Jaya didn't know all the words, but she felt them in the way people looked at her. Eyes used to ignore her. Now they followed her. Some were full of hate, others with jealousy. A few even held fear. She didn't understand why kindness made people so angry. She only knew that since Corwin had helped her, the world around her had changed. Even when she stayed quiet, even when she stayed far away. The whispers followed that morning. She sat near the broken wall with her drawing papers. She sketched birds flying through stars. A picture of a tree with glowing leaves and a small child looking up at the sky. Her hands moved slowly, carefully. Like each drawing could bring back her lost world. Corwin arrived, as usual, with a small pack of food and supplies. He handed her a boiled egg, a slice of bread, and a fruit. Jaya smiled. "You always come," Corwin shrugged. "You always wait." Then he looked around. The camp felt colder even under the sun. "People are talking," he said quietly. Jaya tilted her head. "Bad talk." Corwin nodded. "Some think I should stop helping you." Jaya lowered her eyes. Go away?" she asked. He shook his head quickly. "No, never. You did nothing wrong." She looked at him, confused. "Then why hate?" Corwin sighed. "Because people are scared," Jaya blinked, "of me." He nodded slowly. "Of what you represent." Difference? She didn't understand completely. But she knew this. Good things never lasted in the camp. Not for her kind. Later that day, she heard voices outside her tent. "You think she's better than us? She's just using that human. She's not even from this galaxy." Jaya hugged her blanket and stayed silent. She didn't want to be seen. She didn't want to cause trouble, but even hiding didn't help. That night, someone cut her drawing papers and tore the pictures she had made when she returned the next morning. Her sketches were in pieces. Her heart dropped. She picked them up gently, trying to put them back together. Corwin came running when he saw the torn art. His face turned dark. "Who did this?" he asked. Jaya didn't answer. She just looked down. Corwin knelt beside her. "I'm going to fix this," he said. He stood up and walked straight to the command tent. Inside, he found Sergeant Vorn. "Sir, someone vandalized a refugee's personal space." Vorn didn't even look up. "Refugees don't have personal space." Corwin clenched his fists. "She's just a child." Vorn laughed coldly. "She's a symbol, Corwin. Treat her like one of us. Others think they deserve the same." "That's not a bad thing," Corwin replied. "It is when there's not enough to give," Vorn said sharply. "Resources are limited. If we give too much to one, we lose control of the rest." Corwin left, disgusted. The rules were clear. Kindness was dangerous here. But he didn't care. He would not stop. Later that evening, Corwin returned to Jaya with something special. A small box with more drawing paper, and inside it his new set of colored pencils. She gasped when she saw them. For me." He nodded. "Yes. For your art. For your voice." She looked at the colors like they were magic. "I draw new," she said softly. "No more broken." She drew until the sun disappeared behind the metal towers. Corwin watched as her pictures came to life. A little Therany girl sitting beside a tall human soldier, a planet with two suns and a flower blooming in the sand. A hand reaching out to another in the dark. The next day, one of her new drawings appeared on the wall of the main dining hall, taped quietly, without a name. No one knew who put it there, but people stopped to stare. Some smiled, some frowned, but for the first time, they didn't just whisper about the alien girl. They whispered about the art. "Who made this?" "It's beautiful. Looks like that kid." The glowing eyes, and in the middle of all the noise, Jaya smiled for the first time in a very long time, but danger was still close. Because in a far corner of the camp, a man in dark clothes watched her carefully. He didn't smile, he didn't whisper, he simply muttered. She's becoming a problem, and that meant something was coming. Something Jaya could not draw away. Night had fallen on the refugee camp. Most of the tents were quiet, lit only by soft yellow lights. Children slept curled in thin blankets, and the cold wind moved through the empty paths. Jaya lay on her side in her small tent, hugging the colored pencils tightly. They were her treasures. She had drawn all day, creating pictures of peace and stars. Now she whispered thanks in her native tongue before closing her eyes. Outside, shadows moved. A figure in a dark jacket crept quietly through the narrow paths of the camp. He held a small metal can in one hand, fuel, and in the other, a spark. Stick, he stopped in front of Zia's tent. He looked left, looked right. Then, slowly, carefully, poured the fuel on the edge of the cloth. He whispered under his breath, "Aliens don't belong here." And with a flick, he lit the flame. The fire started small, a soft crackling sound. Then it grew quickly. Orange and hot, inside, Jaya woke to smoke. She coughed and opened her eyes. Confused, flames were crawling up the sides of her tent. Her drawings were burning. She screamed, "Help! Help!" But most people didn't move. They just peeked from their tents. Some even said, "Let it burn." She brought it on herself, in the distance. Corwin was coming back from a patrol shift. He saw the glow first, then heard her scream, "Without." A second thought, he ran. He didn't wait for backup. He didn't grab a weapon. He just ran through the fire. He reached the tent just as it was about to collapse. "Jaya!" He shouted. He saw her curled near the back wall, coughing hard, eyes full of fear. He pulled a knife from his belt and cut through the back of the tent. Then he grabbed her and pulled her out. The flames chased them, but they escaped just in time. He carried her in his arms across the camp. Her skin was red with burns. Her arm was badly hurt. She was shaking, but still alive. Corwin rushed to the medical tent. A nurse looked up, surprised. "She's an alien," she said flatly. "She needs help," Corwin snapped. The nurse crossed her arms. "Only humans are treated here." Corwin's eyes blazed. "Then treat her, or I go straight to the Alliance High Command." He held up his ID badge. The nurse hesitated, then sighed. "Put her down." "But you're responsible for this." Jaya lay still as they wrapped her arm and cleaned the burns. Her eyes stayed on Corwin the whole time. She didn't cry, but tears rolled down her cheeks, not from pain. From losing her drawings, her voice, her memories, her hope. Corwin sat beside her the whole time. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Jaya shook her head. "You saved me." He looked away, but I wasn't fast enough. Outside, people whispered. Again, but this time, it wasn't all hate. She almost died. That soldier ran into the fire for her. Maybe she's not what we thought. The next day, Corwin went to the camp commander again. He slammed a report on the table. Someone tried to kill her. "She needs protection." The commander raised an eyebrow. "We don't protect aliens. We protect order." Corwin leaned forward. "Then you'd better protect order from me." He left the tent, furious. He found Jaya resting on a cot. "Weak but awake," she whispered. "Drawings gone." Corwin nodded. "I know. But you're not." He handed her a fresh sketch pad and a box of new pencils. She looked at them, then at him. A small smile appeared. She turned to the first page and drew something slowly. A flame, a human, hand reaching through it, and a small alien girl, safe on the other side. Later that evening, Corwin hung the drawing outside the medical tent. It flapped gently in the wind, a symbol not of weakness, but of survival. People stopped to look. Some nodded silently, some turned away, but none could deny what they saw. Jaya had lived, and someone had risked everything to save her. But danger wasn't over. In the shadows, the man who lit the fire watched again. This time, he wasn't alone. Two others stood beside him, faces hidden. "She's still breathing," one said. "Not for long," another replied. Jaya didn't know, but her fight had just begun. The morning after the fire, the camp felt different. People walked quietly, as if something heavy filled the air. Soldiers whispered, refugees stared, and even the wind felt colder. Jaya sat in the medical tent, her left arm wrapped in thick bandages. Her eyes stared at the wall where her new drawing still hung. The drawing of Corwin pulling her from the fire. She didn't say much, but her silence spoke louder than words. Corwin sat outside the tent, arms crossed, jaw tight. He hadn't slept all night. He had thought about the same question: why did saving one small alien girl feel like breaking the law? That morning, a message came from the commander's office. Private Corwin. Report immediately. He walked across the dusty camp, past the stairs, past the rumors. He entered the command tent, where Commander Ryle and Sergeant Vorn stood waiting. Commander Ryle looked serious. "You've caused quite a disturbance." "Soldier," he said, helping a non-registered alien. "Breaking protocol. Threatening medical staff." Corwin stood tall. "I saved a life." Vorn stepped forward, smirking. "You disobeyed orders. That alien girl is not your problem. She's not a problem." Corwin said coldly, "She's a person." Ryle sat back, sighing. "You have a choice, Private. Either step away from the girl and return to normal duty, or be transferred permanently. No rank, no protection. You'll be just another outcast." Corwin didn't answer right away. He thought about Earth, his family, his career, the uniform he had worked so hard to earn. Then he thought of Jia's eyes full of fear when the fire surrounded her, and full of hope when she picked up a pencil again. He looked straight at the commander. "I choose the transfer." Both men were silent for a moment. Vorn shook his head in disbelief. "You're throwing everything away for a useless alien?" Corwin stepped closer. "She's not useless. And maybe if we had a little more kindness in this place, she wouldn't have almost died." Without waiting for permission, he turned and walked out. The news spread quickly. Corwin's leaving. He gave up his rank. For her, crazy human, some said. Others whispered, maybe. He did the right thing. Later that day, Corwin returned to the medical tent. Jaya looked up at him, confused. "You sad?" she asked. He smiled softly. "No." "Free," she tilted her head. "You, no soldier now." He nodded. "Not here, but I'll protect you." Jia's eyes filled with tears. "Why?" Corwin sat beside her. "Because someone has to show the others that being human isn't about species, it's about choice." The camp changed slowly after that. Some humans began to leave small things near Jia's bedside: fruit, books, even crayons. A nurse started changing her bandages gently, without being asked. Children came to watch her draw. One little girl even said, "Can you draw me with the stars?" Jaya nodded and smiled. She wasn't invisible anymore. But peace never lasted long. One evening, Corwin returned to their shared tent and found something on the ground. A torn piece of paper with a message written in red ink. "She doesn't belong. Leave or burn again." He crumpled the paper in his hand. His face turned hard. Enough was enough. The next morning, he went to Alliance HQ on the station's communication uplink. He filed a full report. The fire, the threats, the abuse, the refusal of medical aid. He attached Xia's drawings as evidence, each picture showing the pain and hope of the camp. Then he ended the report with one sentence. "We're better than this. We must be." Back at the camp, Corwin told Jaya, "Soon, someone from the Alliance will come. Real change might happen." Jaya smiled, weak but hopeful. "Maybe more humans like you." He chuckled. "I hope so." But just as they began to believe in better days, a small explosion rocked the edge of the camp. "Ammo!" Sirens screamed. People ran, children cried. Ah! A group of masked attackers had broken in. Refugees turned violent. Blaming aliens for their suffering, Corwin grabbed his old gear and rushed into the chaos. He found Jaya helping a crying child hide under a metal table. He knelt beside her. "It's not over yet," he said. She nodded. "Then we fight." Together. And in that moment, Corwin knew he hadn't lost everything. He had found something greater. Purpose. The camp was no longer safe. Smoke rose into the air. Sirens screamed through the narrow paths. People ran in all directions. Some carrying children, others carrying weapons. The attackers came fast. Refugees turned rebels, angry and desperate. They blamed aliens for everything: the shortage of food, the pain of war, the silence of command. And now, they had guns, real ones, stolen from a supply truck the week before. Corwin grabbed his old rifle from his gear locker. Though he had given up his rank, he had never given up his courage. He pulled on his vest, checked the ammo, and ran toward the danger. His boots pounded the ground as panic filled the camp. He didn't think about medals. He didn't think about orders. He thought about Jaya. She was still recovering in the medical tent. Wounded, small, and unarmed, he had to reach her as he turned a corner. A rebel shouted and aimed a weapon. Corwin dove behind a crate as shots rang out. Dust flew, crates splintered. Corwin returned fire, fast and sharp. The rebel went down. No. Time to rest. He sprinted through the maze of tents. People screamed all around him. One mother cried, "My baby's in there." Pointing to a tent where smoke poured out, Corwin didn't stop. He ran in, found the baby under a blanket, and carried her out. "Thank you," the mother wept. But Corwin was already moving again. He reached the medical tent, breath short. Inside, it was chaos. One nurse was hiding under a table. Another had fainted. Jaya was crouched in the far corner, holding a crying child in her arms. When she saw Corwin, her eyes lit up. "You came?" she said. "Always," he replied. "Ah." Loud booms shook the ground. One side of the tent collapsed. Corwin pulled the child from Jaya's arms and handed him to the nurse. "We need to move now," he said. He grabbed Jaya's hand. She winced, her burned arm still healing, but she stood up anyway. They ran together, weaving through chaos. Corwin led her to a bunker near the outer wall. Inside were frightened children. Huddled in silence, the door was half broken, but still strong enough to hold. "Stay here," Corwin said. Jaya shook her head. "I help." He looked at her. "You sure?" She nodded. "Can't hide forever." He handed her a small communication device. "If I call, open the door, and only if it's me." She nodded again, bravely. He left to join a defense team forming near the fuel tanks. There, 5 soldiers stood with rifles. One looked at Corwin, surprised. "I thought you were out." "I am," Corwin said, loading his weapon, but not tonight. The attackers were moving toward the center of the camp now. Gunfire echoed across the towers. Corwin's team flanked from the right. He moved through the shadows, firing short bursts, fast, clean, controlled. One by one, they pushed the rebels back. A rebel shouted, "They're protecting the aliens." Corwin replied through gritted teeth, "We're protecting life." Meanwhile, back in the bunker, Jaya calmed the children. She drew stars and suns on the dirt floor with a broken stick. One little girl whispered, "Will we die?" Jaya shook her head. "No, we live. We dream." Suddenly, the radio crackled. Corwin's voice. "Jaya, open the door, fast." She ran to the panel and pushed it open. Corwin stumbled in, carrying an injured boy. He placed the boy down gently and looked at her. "We're almost done. Just a few left out there." Then, something strange happened. A group of refugees, humans and aliens together, arrived carrying makeshift shields and tools. "We want to help," one man said. Corwin blinked. "Are you sure?" The man nodded. We're tired of being divided together. They stood side by side, not as species, but as survivors. They pushed back the last wave of attackers. By sunrise, the camp was silent again, broken in parts, but still standing. The Alliance forces arrived hours later. Corwin filed a full report. The rebels were arrested. The guards were placed, and aid was promised. Jaya sat on a bench near the med tent, drawing once again. This time, she sketched the camp not in flames, but in light. People standing together. Human hands holding alien hands. Children smiling. Under the same sun, Corwin walked up beside her. What are you drawing now? She smiled. Future, he nodded. I think it's finally beginning. Weeks had passed since the attack. The refugee camp was no longer broken. Tents had been repaired. New guards had arrived, and food deliveries came on time. But the biggest change wasn't in the buildings. It was in the people. Aliens and humans now stood in line together. Children played without fear. Laughter returned, slowly. Like a flower blooming after a storm, Jaya sat at a new wooden bench near the camp's main hall. Her burns were healing. Her strength was returning every day. She drew with soft colors and quiet hands. She sketched peace. She sketched memories. And she sketched hope. Corwin walked toward her carrying 2 trays of warm food. Steam rose from the plates, rice, beans, bread, and a small cup of sweet fruit. He smiled as he reached her. I got extra, he said. Jaya looked up and smiled. Thank you. They sat together and ate slowly. No one stared now. No one whispered. The others had grown used to it. A human and an alien sharing a meal like friends. Like family, Jaya looked around the camp. Everything looked so different now. The fear had faded, replaced by kindness. She remembered her first days here, cold, hungry, hated. She remembered the moment that changed everything. One human had said, "Come eat with me." That sentence had saved her life. And now, it had become her mission. A small alien boy walked past, head down, holding a cracked bowl. He looked scared. Lost just like she once had, Jaya stood up and called softly. Hey! The boy froze. She walked over and bent to his level. What's your name? He looked up slowly. Kilo, he whispered. Hungry. She asked. He nodded. She smiled and held out her hand. Come eat with me. Kilo hesitated, then slowly took her hand. She led him to the table, sat him down, and shared half her plate. Corwin smiled as he watched. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The lesson had already passed from one to another. Later that day, an Alliance official arrived at the camp. She was tall, dressed in blue and silver, with a kind but serious face. She had read Corwin's report. She had seen the videos from the attack, and she had reviewed Jia's art. The silent story of survival, she stood in front of the camp and made an announcement. From this day forward, she said, this refugee station will become a pilot project where humans and aliens live, work, and heal. Together, people clapped. Some cried. Jaya stood near Corwin and whispered. Together, he nodded. That's how it should have been all along. The official turned to Jaya. We would like you to stay on as an art teacher for refugee children. Jaya's eyes widened. Me? Yes, the woman smiled. Your art brings light to this place. Jaya looked at Corwin. Unsure, he nodded gently. You're ready? The next morning. Jaya walked into the learning tent. Inside were 12 children from 5 different species, all of them quiet, some scared, some shy. She picked up a piece of chalk and drew a circle on the board. Then she smiled. This is not school, she said. This is your voice. Use it. The children blinked. Confused, she handed out papers and pencils. Draw your story, she said. Even if you don't have words, slowly, little hands began to move. Lines turned into stars. stars into houses, and houses into hearts outside. The tent Corwin watched from a distance. His time at the camp was almost over. He had been offered a new role, peacekeeping liaison for human-alien refugee programs. It meant more traveling, more danger, but also more impact. He walked to Jaya, after class, I'm leaving next week, he said. Jaya's eyes dropped. Where? Another station, same work, he replied. I'll still check on you. She smiled softly. You're not just soldier now. No, he said. I'm a bridge. She hugged him gently, not with fear, but with strength. You are. My family, she said. He smiled, and you're mine. As he walked away, she returned to her class. The children laughed and showed her their drawings in the middle of all the noise. Jaya saw Kilo sitting alone, looking at his empty plate. She walked over, knelt beside him, and whispered again, Come eat with me. Because the words that saved her would now save others again and again.